Well, welcome to the first of 4 weeks of our abundance program that we're doing. And so our abundance program this year is based on the book In the Flow of Life by Eric Butterworth. And so today we are looking at the first chapter in the book, which is called Living from the Inside Out. And so I'd like to actually begin just by talking a little bit about what abundance is and what it is not. Because I think sometimes we think that abundance is really only about money. While abundance includes money, it's actually much more than just about money. And so the Latin root for the word abundance means fullness and plenty, overflowing and full. And so abundance then really includes everything that creates a sense of a plentiful and a rich and a full life. That which is satisfying and feels full. And so that means then that living in the experience of plenty is really what abundance is about. Abundance is about living in the experience of plenty and the feelings of contentment and the feelings of enough that come with that. To live an abundant life is to have a sense of well-being in all the different areas of our lives. So certainly we know people that have lots and lots, and sometimes we think that abundance is about having lots and lots, or about having more than we need. But have you ever seen the TV show Hoarders? You know, they certainly have lots and lots of stuff. They certainly have more than what they need, but none of us, I don't think, in this room would feel content or satisfied living in that. So it's not really about having lots and lots or more than we need. And we also know people or have seen people in this world who have lots and lots of money, and yet they're not satisfied. Yet they don't feel filled up, and it doesn't feel like enough. And some of those people we see, it's like no matter how much they have, it will never be enough, and they'll never feel filled up. So it's not really about having piles and piles of money either. So true abundance then is really about having a sense of enough and to have a sense of well-being that comes out of that sufficiency. And so that includes then, abundance includes enough love and enough friends and enough time, enough opportunities, enough creativity, enough money, so that we feel good, so that we feel content, so that we feel at ease in our own lives. And so I know that all of us, we all want to experience abundance. We all want to experience that right amount that feels satisfying to us. Enough of the good. Enough of the good of friends and money and health and opportunities and fun and all those things that we name good in our lives. We want to experience enough of those things. The problem is really, though, is that we have been taught that our good comes from the world. We've been taught that our good comes from the world, that our abundance comes from the world. We've also been taught that we have to struggle and work hard and strain in order to have abundance, or that experiencing abundance is really a matter of luck or chance. If we're lucky enough to land the right job with the right company, we will experience abundance. Or if we happen to be at the right place at the right time and meet the right person for a mate, then we will experience enough love and it will be satisfying and fulfilling. Or if you are lucky enough to be born with the right genes, then you'll get to experience good health. Do you know that scientists are actually showing that we change our DNA by our attitude? So that even that is not the truth, what you've been born with. In fact, Bruce Lipton, who is a stem cell biologist and a PhD, says, researchers have discovered that the factors of love and appreciation, anxiety and anger influence a person's genetic blueprint. What happens is those feelings of anger and resentment, or of appreciation and gratitude and love, create chemicals in our bodies, right? Stress chemicals or relaxation chemicals, which turn on and off genes. So it changes the way the genes express in our body, which is the result. The result of that is health or not having health. And so that other thing that we've learned, that if you work hard enough and long enough, that you'll be financially prosperous. But the truth is, we live in an opulent universe. We live in this field of opulent good. The universe, if you think about it, is comprised of infinite potentiality. You see that infinite potential in life and all the expression of life on this planet. Financial abundance is just part of the good that energetic expression is. Financial abundance is really just one more piece of the activity of God. Just like creativity and joy and love are all part of the activity of that one divine presence. And so what that means then is that prosperity, financial prosperity, is not separate from the energy of love. And that energy of love is not separate from creativity, and creativity is not separate from health, and health is not separate from wisdom or from guidance or from opportunities. It's all the creative activity, creative intelligence, the good of the universe unfolding itself. It's that divine presence unfolding itself in us and through us and in our lives and through our lives as life itself. It's all the activity of life itself, which is that thing we call God. And so each one of us, our own individual lives are the outpicturing of that infinite potentiality. Each and every single one of our lives is the outpicturing of that one presence and that one power and that one beingness. Each one of our lives is the outpicturing of the creative intelligence of the universe. That creative intelligence fills us and surrounds us. We are immersed in it. It fills every single moment. It fills every moment and every place that we go. Everywhere that we are, the allness of God is. And all that God is present there. It is said, God, whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. God, whose center is right where we are. God, whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere, means that the allness that God is everywhere present, without end. All the creativity, all the intelligence, all the wisdom, all the power, all the good is at the center of us and at the very center of our own individual lives, because it's at the center of everything. And the nature of that presence and the nature of that power and that one is to express. That's what it does. It expresses as everything that we see, and it continuously expresses as that life essence. And so in the book, in the Flow of Life that we're using, in this first chapter, Eric Butterworth says, Jesus said, "It is your Father's pleasure to give you the kingdom." In other words, there is a longing at the heart of the universe to flow forth into and to perfect all that has been created. It is constantly and endlessly animating and supporting and unfolding as and uplifting, maintaining and sustaining everything in this universe. It's the animating factor in our lives. And so the desire of the universe then is to express, and not just to express in part, but to express in fullness. And so if that is the truth, if that is the case, why then do we experience want in our lives? Why then do we experience lack? Why then do we experience less than an abundance of the good things that we desire in our lives? Ernest Holmes, who is the founder of this philosophy, says, life can do for us only what life can do through us. Or God can do for us only what God can do through us. What that means then to me is we must be of like thought, of like vibration, of like energy to that which is the truth in order to bring that into us. Because when we're not, we block the flow. And so Eric Butterworth also says, thought of itself does not create. It either places us consciously in the universal flow or it frustrates the flow. If we think sickness or lack, we do not manufacture these things. When the thought is out of synchronization with the flow of life, then, even as anything cut off from its source, we come to know want. When our thinking and our feeling and our beliefs and our attitude and our attention, what our attention is on, is unlike the nature of infinite potential and boundless good, we block that from coming into us and from coming through us. So our feelings and our thinking are either doing one of two things all the time. Our thinking either is aligning us with that natural expansion of the universe, that activity of the divine presence. It either aligns us with that unfolding creative force, or it removes us from that expression and from that unfolding. We remove ourselves when our actions and when our thinking is counter to that divine nature, right? So what that means then is things like fear and worry and seeing ourselves as a victim or seeing ourselves as powerless takes us out of that natural flow. It's kind of like, imagine this, that infinite potentiality of the universe, God, that divine presence, is oil. And when we are stuck in negative thinking of doubt and of fear and of worry and of negativity, it's like we are water. The oil cannot permeate that water. It cannot imbue that water because it is too dissimilar. But when we change our thinking so that it is a recognition of the opulence of life, so that we are in a recognition of our oneness with that, so that we are at a recognition that that infinite boundless good is the very center and essence of our life, then our thinking is in alignment with the truth and the reality of that divine presence. But when we are in doubt and worry and fear and negativity, our thinking is too dissimilar to embody that good. Does that make sense to you? And so there's a story in A Daily Dose of Sanity by Alan Cohen that kind of talks about this. He says, John Hicks tells of one summer when he and a buddy set out on a fishing expedition. The two rented a boat at a lake, found a quiet spot, and cast their rods. From the moment the men began fishing, the fish were practically jumping into their boat, until at the end of the day, the tiny craft chugged back to the dock so laden that it nearly sank. As the anglers approached the dock, the rental agent was stunned. "Where did you catch all those fish?" he said excitedly. "Right over there," Jerry answered, pointing to the locale of their windfall. "That's unbelievable," said the agent, shaking his head. "Everybody's talking about nobody catching any fish in this lake all summer long. I didn't want to tell you that when I rented the boat to you because I needed the money, and I'm glad I didn't." He goes on to say, abundance is the natural condition of life, and it yields its treasure to those whose minds are open to receive it. Yet a belief in lack is enough to create a condition of lack. When many people agree on lack, it seems real. Meanwhile, as you can see from Jerry's experience, those who do not know what they cannot do usually end up getting what they want. If you are, quote, fishing for a house, business success, friendship, or a soulmate, pay no attention to the dire reports of those who say that what you want cannot be done. Prophets of woe have fallen under the hypnosis of deficiency. Instead, remember that there's a lot of what you want out there. And if you drop your line, representing your mind, into the right place in the lake, the pool of all that is available, your boat will be laden with treasure, and you will leave the naysayers with their jaws hanging. That story reminds me of so many stories that I hear about kids who've started nonprofits. Do you remember I told you guys that story? It was about a little girl named Sammy Vance. She was 9 years old from Indiana, and she started collecting the plastic bottle tops off of bottles to have them melted down and created into what are called buddy benches. And buddy benches are a bench that is put on the playground at a school, so if somebody is in want of a friend or someone to play with, people can know and people can go and play with them. It was all out of this idea to stop loneliness. And I went online to see if I could find that story again to tell you all. You cannot believe how many schools have buddy benches, how many companies are producing buddy benches, all out of a little girl's idea to do this. And I have a couple other stories. There's one that says 5-year-old Phoebe Russell needed to complete a community service project before she could graduate from kindergarten. Uninterested in a lemonade stand, she saw a homeless man begging for food and decided to raise $1,000 for the San Francisco Food Bank. Her teacher tried to lower her expectations to something a little more reasonable. But Phoebe's heartwarming appeal to leave soda cans to collect donations at the school snowballed. Before she knew it, Phoebe had raised $3,763.30, the equivalent of 17,800 heated meals. There's another story about Brittany and Robbie Berquist, 12 and 13 respectively, learned of a soldier who racked up an $8,000 cell phone bill by calling his family from Iraq. They decided to pay the soldier's phone bill and brought $21 to the bank to start an account. The bank manager was so impressed, he added an additional $500 to that. This encouraged them to keep trying. The kids then held car washes and bake sales, and then ultimately decided on recycling used cell phones. With help from volunteers, they set up drop-off sites across the United States and used the proceeds to buy prepaid phone cards for the troops overseas. To date, their, quote, Cell Phones for Soldiers program has collected 7.5 million cell phones and provided military personnel with over 90 million minutes of prepaid phone time. Why are those kids able to do that? They don't believe in lack. They don't believe they can't. They don't believe it's not possible. Instead, they live in possibility. That's their mindset, unlimited possibility. So that's what we're being called to do, to recognize we live in unlimited possibility. We live in this field of pure potentiality. We live in this field of boundless good. And that pure potentiality and that boundless good is the very nature of life, and it's the very nature of our lives. Because our lives are it expressing itself. And when we remember that, we place ourselves into that flow of opulent good. Why does that put us in that flow? Because it changes our expectations. Because it changes our attitude. Because it changes what we're looking for, what we're open to. When we expect the best, when we expect that everything will work out, when we expect and know that life is good, that we will have what we need, we immerse ourselves in that flow of life. An attitude of gratitude is what comes out of that. An attitude of trust, an attitude of relaxation, an attitude of expecting the good aligns us with that good. It aligns us with that opulent good of the universe and opens us to that flow. It's kind of like a dam. You know, if you think about it, there's a dam that has like millions of gallons of water behind it. That dam does not experience millions of gallons of water. That dam experiences what is right just pressed up against it, that millimeter of water. But when those floodgates are open on that dam, then that dam experiences the flow and the rushing in of all this water that's behind it that it isn't even aware of. That's what happens when we live in faith and in expectancy of good. When we're looking for that good, we're living in trust and we're living in gratitude. We're knowing that life is good. We open those floodgates so that water can come through as the good that we desire and fill our lives. And so my invitation to you is to do whatever it is that you need to do to get your thinking in alignment with the opulence of this universe. Whatever you need to do to get your thinking and your feeling to line up with that truth of pure potentiality, with infinite good. That means maybe to read and to study and to read the book that we're doing in the Flow of Life, to remind yourself that you live in this reality of opulence. And if it helps you to think about in this world the opulence of life, think about how many grains of sand are on one beach. More than we can count. How many grains of sand in this entire world? How many leaves on this one tree outside the door? How about all the trees in this universe? How about think about the variety of birds in this world? And you've seen nature videos of them doing mating dances and crazy things that they do. How's that for creativity? The variety and the colors of birds, that creativity is at the center of your life and at the center of you. Think about all the variety of insects on this planet. More than could fit on one ark. That is at the center of your life. That creative intelligence. Remind yourself that that creative intelligence is the very foundation of life and the foundation of your life. And use your affirmations to remind yourself. Use affirmations to shift your perspective, to shift your focus on from what isn't working, to shift your focus and your thinking and ultimately your beliefs. And Eric Butterworth talks about affirmations in this book. He says, an affirmation of truth is not intended to make something true. It's an effective means of synchronizing our consciousness with the flow of life. It is simply our consent, our way of saying yes to the flow, which is the God's good pleasure in us and through us. It's our consent. We get our negative thinking, the naysayer, out of the way by affirming that the good that I need is right here now, and it's life's good pleasure to give me the kingdom, and whatever your affirmations need to be. I have all that I need at every moment. This boundless universe supplies me with all the good that I need. Whatever the affirmations are that you need. And do affirmative prayer so that you can shift your focus from what isn't working to the truth that yes, we live in this infinite potential. That yes, that divine presence is always at the very center of my life. The truth that ever-present good is at the center of everything. That will open your floodgates. Somebody said in class this week that he had the realization that prayer is not a luxury. I love that. Prayer is not a luxury. Prayer is a tool that we use to get our naysayer out of the way and to open us to the good that is already at hand. It takes us out of our focus on what isn't and moves us to a place of recognition that all that God has is already ours, because we are the sons and daughters and the incarnations of that one presence. Prayer takes us to a place in our awareness where we recognize that the kingdom of God is at hand, that we already live in this kingdom right now, and that boundless good, that's what that kingdom of heaven is, a realm of boundless good, is already right where we are and all around us. And it is out of that consciousness and out of that knowingness, out of that remembrance, that we experience greater peace and greater ease and greater trust and greater joy and a more abundant and expansive life. And so blessings to every single one of you on this path of awakening to your own spirit, awakening to that presence of God that is always closer than your very breathing. Blessings to you on this path of unfolding your own divine nature in this world, and this path of remembering from whence you have come and who you are and whose you are. And so blessings to you on this path. And so we've started a new practice here as of January 1st, that on your insert, there are spaces for you to take notes. And on the back of that is a place for reflections and intentions or goals. So I'd like to give you a couple of minutes to take some notes, write down some intentions or reflections. If you need a pen, you can raise your hand. So I invite you to wrap up that last thought. And I'm going to ask the practitioners to encircle the room. And so I invite you to join all of us. We're going to do a chamber of prayer for your abundance and the abundance in this entire world. And so I invite you to join all of us in this energy of prayer and this intention. And so what I recognize right now is that there is only one presence and one power. And I invite the practitioners to treat out loud of their own prayer for you also. That there is only one presence and one power and one life. And that this presence and this power and this life of God is infinite. It is absolute and perfect and harmonious and good. That there is nothing that is outside of this one, that is different or separate or apart from this one. For God is all that there is, in and through and around and as everything in this material universe. And so right now I recognize that each and every single one of us is right where God is, and that God is right where we are. That we are surrounded by, we are immersed in, we are filled with all the love, all the good, all the intelligence, all the wisdom, all the guidance, all the opportunities, all of the good that God is. For it is indeed God's good pleasure to give us the kingdom. And we live in that kingdom right here and right now, that it is unfolding itself as the good that each one of us desires in our lives, that we are uplifted and we are carried and we are guided and we are guarded at every moment, that the opulence that God is here for the taking. And so today there is an opening within each one of us, a receptivity, a yes. And as we say yes, in floods the good of the universe. And so I just give thanks for these blessings and for this abundance, and for this good. And I say, thank you, God. And so it is. Nice.